Hi there. Welcome back to the Saloon. Can I get you anything? Well, this week, folks, we're going to talk about Jesse Anderson, or better known as, I guess you could call him Sonny Boy. But this ain't the Sonny Boy y'all are familiar with, like Sonny Boy Williamson first or the second, something like this. To my knowledge, there's only one Sonny Boy that was in Wichita, Kansas, probably in all its history. And it was Jesse Anderson. Now, who was Jesse Anderson? Jesse Anderson was an old blues guy that lived in Wichita, who I met when I guess I was 23 years old. It wasn't long after I met Barry Harris, who grew up with Jesse. If you missed the episode about Barry, you can check it out. It was the first episode of Shiloh Saloon Stories. But anyway, basically Jesse Anderson was a contemporary of Barry Harris, and he was a elder blues man that had been on the music scene in Wichita, Kansas for decades. Jesse, I think he was born in Arkansas. That's where he's from. But around the time he was 14, he moved to Wichita, Kansas. And I think, he started singing in church, stuff like that. But when he was 14 years old, I think it was, he was in a music store playing saxophone. He picked up the sax and started playing a Howling. And the people in the music store basically just, from what the story I heard, they just stopped what they were doing right there and listened to this 14-year-old kid play this song on the saxophone solo. Well, the store owner liked him so much and thought he was so talented, he said, "Hey man, take the saxophone." And Jesse supposedly paid the thing off. He was only 14 years old, but paid it off with his own money. And, it just kind of went from there. Jesse, he was a songwriter as well. He wrote some songs. We'll get to that. He wrote a song for Buddy Guy. We'll get to that. We'll talk a little bit about that. He also wrote, I think, a song for Boz Scaggs. Traveled with a lot of famous musicians. Ended up on the Apollo, which is a hard thing for anyone to do. I mean, to get on the Apollo, from what I understood from Jesse, you had to be really, really, really good, or they'd boo you. So, I got to meet Jesse because I guess the way I first encountered him was seeing him during a blues. They used to have these things in Wichita, the Blues Society. These Blues Society things, kind of hokey if you ask me, but whatever. They put on some kind of blues crawl every I think seasonally. Like one in the fall, one in the spring, one in the summer. And I think that's where I saw Jesse, was during one of these blues crawls, and I just was knocked out by him. He was the real thing. I mean, you gotta understand, Jesse was like, I think he was a Leo, he said, and he was full on king of the jungle. You better believe he was the lion in the jungle. Because when Jesse, whenever he walked into a room, I mean, the man just exudes the wrong word, commanded attention. And it wasn't like he walked in and just commanded it. He just had that charisma, for lack of a better way to describe it. He had major charisma. And I'm sure it's something that he learned throughout the years in the entertainment industry. You play at the Apollo, you got to have some kind of charisma. So, I guess it was later that year that Jesse opened basically it was a barbecue restaurant during the day and the evening, but in the evening after a certain time, and I mean after a certain time, at 7 o'clock, it was music time, and that was a nightclub. It was a blues joint, and it was called Sonny Boyz. Now, Sonny Boyz was the coolest damn place. One of the coolest places I've ever played at or been to. I used to just hang out there during the daytime. I mean, I wouldn't have anything to do, and I'd just take my guitar up there and just hang out with Jesse. And sometimes I'd just sit on the stage and play a little bit, you know, and just run through things, and just, Jesse would do all the cooking too at Sonny Boyz. It was wild. He had a big chef's hat that he wore, the whole uniform, culinary stuff, everything. He wore the whole damn thing. And he cooked, you know, ribs, barbecue, hot links, which is something you can only get out in the Midwest, hot links. I miss hot links a lot. They were good. And Jesse could make them. He had a hot sauce too. We used to talk about it, you know, put in the thing. He said, just, you know, it just keeps cooking and keeps getting hotter the longer it's sitting in the little sauce bottle that he had on the tables. But, you know, I'd go up there and just, a lot of times just play just to see if the old guy would come out and say anything about it, you know, or give me a pointer or two, or say, hey, man, that sounds good. Hey, that doesn't sound good. But, you know, a lot of the old guys went up there too. You know, guys like D.D. Dunn, we'll talk about him later. Barry would go up there, my pop. Dual Edwards. Just a lot of the guys would just go up there, and it was funny because it was just a place where you could go and hang out and have a good time and during the day and just talk about music and stuff. And I remember many occasions sitting up there with an acoustic guitar and you know, four of these guys around, we'd be talking and stuff, and they, I guess I earned these old guys respect, because even though they didn't play old Delta blues and the kind of stuff that I was trying to play, you know, things like Lightning Hopkins, stuff like that, Robert Nighthawk, even though they didn't play that kind of stuff, they played a different kind of blues, and Jesse played a different kind of blues altogether. I mean, he didn't just play blues, but these guys grew up on that stuff. That's what they listened to when they were kids. So I earned their respect, because they said that I, in the words of Ray Drew, another elder bluesman that lived out there, a real deal blues guy, he said, you know, you don't butcher it all to shit. And, you know, so we'd be sitting up there at the table, you know, and I was playing guitar, and I can remember one time the guys had said, one of them said, hey, Matt, play some Lightning Hopkins. And so I just, you know, I played some Lightning Hopkins right there at the table and sing, you know, I can't remember what, I think Mojo Hand or something like that. And when I got done, I was still looking down, and they were clapping when I looked up. So it was just that kind of a place. It was real encouraging to me as a young man, and just a terrific, terrific place. The stage at Sonny Boyz was great. It looked like a back porch. And this was all the idea of Jesse Anderson. He had the whole thing, windows, everything, just looked like a back porch, and that's where you played. Now, Jesse played, like I said, he played saxophone, but he also played guitar, and he played really, really well. I mean, he was one of those guys that even though you look at his hands and see it doing, you'd think it was making a note that you knew, or playing a progression that but it didn't match. You know what I mean? He just had this, I can't even really describe the way, but it was a special way about him. But Jesse really knew how to run that joint, and club owners today could take a real lesson from him, because he always made sure that the musician or the band that was there, actually it wasn't a band. We'll get to that. He just always made sure that whoever he featured that night, he made sure the audience knew who they were. And how did he do that? Well, it wasn't advertising in a paper or anything like that. He did that too. But what I'm talking about is when the band was up on the bandstand ready to play, what Jesse would do, then this was clever too. Jesse wouldn't hire a band every week. Jesse had a house band of guys that he could depend on, that knew what Jesse wanted and how Jesse wanted it. Remember, king of the jungle. And when the lion roars, you don't want to be there. So anyway, he would, instead of booking a band, he had a house band, bass player, drummer, and I think a keyboard player, or no, excuse me, guitar player. And basically what he would do is he would find a front guy every week, somebody that played under their own name, and he would feature them. And that doesn't mean feature them for 3 hours straight to the point where you're bored. There's no one on this planet that I want to watch for 3 hours. And if you're wondering why I say 3 hours, because usually in a club, that's what bands are booked for, you know, in a joint, you know. I just call that like a joint, you know. But Jesse was smart about it. He would have the house band play a couple of songs, and then he would come out of the kitchen. A lot of the times he'd be back there cooking. Sometimes he'd come out of the kitchen in his cook's hat. I mean, the whole damn thing, the whole culinary outfit. And he would introduce who was getting ready to be the feature artist. And that feature artist would only have to play like, you know, 6 songs. So it was a real event. He made it a show for his audience. And that's why the place packed out. It's why people kept coming back. I mean, you go there on Friday and Saturday night, that place was hopping. And it wasn't a big joint either. That was kind of the charm about it, is that it wasn't a huge place. But I mean, you just pull up and you knew something big was happening there. And sadly, Sonny Boyz got closed down because Jesse got a bad deal on the lease. You know, one of those old stories. And some guy just basically ended a great thing. One that Jesse didn't have the money or couldn't come through or anything like that. He was a total go-getter. But, you know, it was such a fun place. And Jesse, a lot of the times, he would just come out of the kitchen in his full guard, and he'd come up on the bandstand and pick up his saxophone, and he'd be up there playing in his chef's wear and just kicking ass. And he was you know, I remember this one guy that played bass for him in his house band. I don't remember the guy's name or anything like that, but I do remember he would tie scarves around his microphone, like, you know, a la Steven Tyler kind of shit. And Jesse, if he didn't like what that house band was doing before the guests came on or whatever, if he felt like it wasn't really so much that like the house band was doing something wrong or something like that. It's just that if he felt like the audience wasn't paying attention, then he had to do something about it. And that meant coming out of the kitchen, running up to the stage, and going, come on, come on, come on, come on, you know, that kind of thing. Come on, you know, just get your shit together kind of thing. And man, that little guy that played bass, I called it the monkey dance. He started doing this little shit like this, you know, trying to damn come up with something to please the old man, and the old man go back in the kitchen and you know, try to cool off. And Jesse was so cool, man. He had gone to Chicago when he was a kid, you know, young man, I guess, you know, 18, 20, with some band. I can't remember the name of the band right now. If I remember, I'll try to put it in the description of this link here. But he went out there with a band. And I guess this would have been in the 50s because, I mean, I would go back there and talk to Jesse a lot of times in the kitchen, whether it be daytime or nighttime. A lot of times at nighttime, I found out that it's probably not a good, it might not be a good idea to go back there and talk to him at night, depending on what kind of night it was. The daytime, he was always in a great mood and relaxed because there wasn't much going on. But I found out quickly that, you know, you might be playing Russian roulette if you went back there during the evening when the place was open and talked to him, because one night I went back there and asked him some question about some stupid shit about Chicago blues or something. He said, man, get the fuck out of here. God damn, you know, I mean, just get the fuck out of here. And I was gone. He's a big guy, you know, and he, you know, he was an older man at that time. He was probably in his late 60s, early 70s. But he was an intimidating fella, man. And like I said, he always wore these like kind of tinted glasses, you know, like, I don't know, man, like some kind of mafia boss or something, you know. And he was so intimidating, but so friendly at the same time too, you know. I think that was the only time that Jesse ever got on my ass. Except I kept telling him, I said, man, I want to bring my band in here. These guys can't play the kind of shit that I'm playing. And I was the only guy that he let bring a band in there for some reason. And because he knew he liked the band. He knew it was just a stand-up bass player, Jesse Major, and a guy named Daryl Greenlee, who went down to the club all the time too and played. So I got away with it somehow. But you know, Jesse would tell me so many cool stuff. He knew Robert Nighthawk. And if you don't know who Robert Nighthawk is, I mean, he's like the guy that basically kind of taught Muddy Waters how to play guitar, and all these guys, Earl Hooker, all these guys, you know, kind of patterned themselves a little bit after Robert Nighthawk. In fact, Robert Nighthawk, I think, played at Muddy Waters' wedding, and it took place at his juke joint played after the wedding at his juke joint, and supposedly things got such a ruckus that the floor caved in. But anyway, Jesse would have these great stories about Maxwell Street. And if you don't know what Maxwell Street is, try to find a movie on YouTube or somewhere called This, and I think it's called And This Is Free. And it's all about Maxwell Street, which was an open air market that used to be around in the 1950s. And I mean, blues guys would go down there and basically play on the street and advertise their gigs for that night, you know, like on a Saturday. They go down there and plug up, play. You can look at all this old footage. In fact, Robert Nighthawk's on that old footage in that movie, And This Is Free. Sadly, they took a lot of video of the audience during it, and then just played his performance over it, so you don't get to see a lot of him. But there's a good bit. Check it out. But anyways, open air market. So you have musicians down there. You would have, you know, people selling socks, people selling this, selling that. It's just open air market, you know. And I mean, it was wild. You know, Jesse was around during that time, and he would talk about seeing Robert Nighthawk on the street down there on Maxwell Street playing, and talked about befriending him and stuff. And, you know, Jesse told so many things about that era of blues that they weren't in books I read, you know. And this was coming from the horse's mouth. Like, for example, he said that he used to go to this place on Sundays. It was an open jam. And the open jam was basically Buddy Guy and a drummer, Fred Below. And it'd just be them, Buddy Guy and Fred Below, no bass player, okay? And he said he'd be in there and Buddy Guy would do flips with his guitar while he'd be playing with Fred Below. And also on some Sundays, you know, I mean, like Jesse knew Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf and Little Walter and all these guys. He played with them, you know, because they would have jams. I mean, I didn't even know this, you know. I thought that you know, as a young 20-year-old, man, I didn't know that Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf had jam sessions that they hosted, you know, on Sundays at I think Teresa's Lounge, or where all these places they play, you know, in town. And Jesse would go down, and he said these guys were accessible. You could play with them, you know. And but Jesse was such a cool guy, man. And that Sonny Boyz whole thing was a besides Ninth Street in Wichita, which was a club that Barry Harris would take me to on Monday nights down there. Sonny Boyz was a place where I cut my teeth. It really was a lot of times, and I was given the support to do it, and a lot of inspiration behind it as well. You know, I last saw Jesse, I guess it was around 2013. I'd gone out to Wichita, Kansas on a little tour, and playing at a farmer's market, and look up after the gig, probably on the last song, and I look out, and there's Jesse and Mo. And Mo was a lady that he met later in life. I think the story I read somewhere, it might have been Jesse's obituary. I didn't know this, but apparently she walked into Sonny Boyz one night and saw Jesse play and saw how talented he was, and went up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, you're so amazing. What are you doing here?" And Jesse, being the sly old king of the jungle that he was, he said, "Waiting to meet you." And so they were together all throughout the end of his life, which I think he died, I want to say he was in his mid-70s. But Jesse came up to me after the gig. He was on dialysis, I think. He had diabetes. And he was in bad shape. I knew that he didn't have much longer to go, but we talked for a minute and reminisced on Sonny Boyz and all of the funny stuff and you know, laughing about things that I used to do and whatnot. And that was the last time I saw him. God bless him. But so back to the songwriting thing. Jesse wrote a song for Buddy Guy, supposedly. It's correct. I'll say this. Let me start that over. Jesse Anderson is credited with writing a song for Buddy Guy, and it's called "I Got a Problem." I got a problem. Barry used to sing it to me all the time. I got a problem. He's singing in that voice. I got a problem. I got a problem with my woman. Got a problem with my wife. That's a hell of a problem to have. Damn. But anyway, Barry claimed that he wrote that song. And that when Jesse left to go to Chicago, they used to hang out at a place when they were younger called Flagler's Garden. Now, Flagler's Garden eventually became, I think that was back in the 50s, but when they were kids, they used to hang out there and play. That's where they started playing music. I know it's where Jesse started playing music when he came to town. And I'm pretty sure that Barry was playing there not long after. But Flagler's Garden, for those of y'all that know about Wichita, Kansas, Flagler's Garden later became the Coyote Club, which was a really famous club. I think, everybody played there, from blues people to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I mean that. I mean, when they were like basically cutting their teeth, going on, trying to make a name for themselves, they actually played there. In fact, somebody told me that that Anthony Kiedis or something, they were signing people that night. They were signing people wanted their autograph, and they were signing stuff like, putting on the paper or stuff like, your wife's got great tits, Anthony Kiedis. But anyway, those guys came up together and played at a place called Flagler's Garden. It later became the Coyote Club, and then it became a place called the Roadhouse, which was a place me and Barry used to go out and play together on Monday nights. We'd go out there. It was another open jam. Thursday nights. Monday nights was Ninth Street Jam. We used to, and I don't like jams. Don't get me wrong. I don't like jams. Okay, here's the story on these jams. I was young, and I'd go to the jam at the Roadhouse on Thursday nights because Barry wanted to go out there, and we'd drive out there in his Cadillac and drink a bunch of liquor and stuff and play guitars. And that didn't mean much to me because most of the musicians out there I didn't give two shits about playing with anyway. But when we go to 9th Street on Monday night, that was kind of like education night for me because that's where the old blues guys would end up. And you would learn things down there. So that was important to me to go down there and play with those guys and be around them. They had a huge effect on me. But anyway, Barry and Ray Jesse used to play, Jesse Anderson used to play at a place called Flagler's Garden. And, when, I guess Jesse, around the time he moved to Chicago, Barry, this is not from my mouth, this is from Barry Harris's mouth. Around that time, Barry had written a song, he says, called "I Got a Problem." Same song. I got a problem with a woman. I got a problem with my wife. Same problem. And he said that when Jesse left, that he would let him have it to go record under his own name in Chicago. Because Jesse was like, I guess he kind of like caught fire a little bit. Barry's situation was a lot different. Barry had a family, and that meant that Barry had to hold down a job and support his family, which he did for 40 some odd years at the Boeing plant. And Jesse was a little different. He had started getting a little bit of stardom, I guess, and started chasing that out to Chicago with this band, which I still can't remember the name of the band. It's evading me right now. But anyway, like I said, I'll put it in the description. But Barry said, you know, you go out there and you can record my song. Well, what happened was, oh, it got me. What happened was, I'm not going to edit that either, see. What happened is Jesse went out there, but he sold the song to Buddy Guy. And if you look at I Got a Problem, it is credited to Jesse Anderson. Now, funny thing about this is, Pop, my pop, Barry Harris, Pop was always friends with Jesse Anderson. And if they were around each other, you would swear they were just the best of friends. And that these guys loved each other. And they did. I think it was more like a Muddy Waters, Howling Wolf kind of thing. But because both of them, Barry was, let me tell you this, Barry was the lion of the jungle, of his jungle too. He was not going to be second place to anyone. I mean, Barry was the kind of lion that if the lion was on stage playing guitar and I was backing him up and he made a mistake, well, he'd look around for somebody in the band to blame it on. You know what I mean? And so they would be nice to each other, but apart from each other, and I'm going to tell on Pop a little bit, because I never heard this from this side from Jesse. Jesse never had this kind of animosity somewhat, but did have the competitive spirit. You could tell, you know, when you're around these two guys together, you were around two giants, you know. And it was so funny because it's, you know, if Barry read something about Jesse in the paper, he was playing here or he was doing this or whatever, it was hilarious because he would go, "Oh, Jesse Anderson and the Blues Boys, my shit, Blues Boys my ass, shit. Jesse think he a goddamn star. Jesse walk around like he a goddamn star. He ain't no goddamn star. Shit, kiss my ass. Walk around like some kind of goddamn star. Want somebody to kiss your ass. Shit." That was Pop. I mean, he would it would eat him up, but he loved Jesse. Don't get me wrong. These guys loved each other. They really did. I'm trying to think of anything else that I've left out about Jesse. He was quite the character. And I think that was his name of his band was Jesse Anderson the Blues Boys, because they used to have a little jam. I think I remember seeing that advertised like that. Well, folks, I guess that does it for me. I'm glad to turn you on to Sonny Boy, Jesse Anderson, and I hope you come back and hang out at the Saloon again with me. Please remember, if you like these Shiloh Saloon stories and you want to keep up what's going on down here at the Saloon, you got to go and subscribe. And not only that, you got to hit that notification link there too, so you'll get notifications when I post a new episode here at the bar. Well, that's all from me. Y'all have a good one, all right? Come back now.